Okay. Let's call the meeting to order. This is the May 15th, 2020 meeting of the Shelby Historic Preservation Commission. We'll do roll call first. Lacey Bassett.
She didn't answer.
She's
moving your
trying
lips.
to, you can wave. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why. Yeah, we can't hear Lacey. She'll have to work on that. Gary Bly is absent. Pat Carlisle.
Present.
Chris Drain, present. Joe Thompson.
Present.
Amir Shag. Present. Joe Geis. Present. We're waiting to see if Jessica Gribben is going to join us today. So we do have a quorum. We have 4 out of 5. Are there any additions or changes to the order of the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on. Motion to approve the April 17th, 2020 digital and written minutes.
Go move.
Joe moves. Whoop, we lost Lacey. I guess we'll
She's
wait.
rebooting.
Let me, yeah.
She's relaunching.
Here she's coming back. There she is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Very good. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So we've, Joe Thompson has made a motion to approve the April 17th, 2020 digital and written minutes. I need a second. Lacey, would you second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nay.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Thank you. Committee reports. Outreach and education with Joe Thompson. If you remember, we were proposing a series of educational meetings with our property owners. And we talked about having one in June. You asked me, and I guess we cooperatively did this, broke the Secretary Standards book down into sections that we would talk about at the meeting. So I proposed that I do the introduction, which talks about the 4 different types of projects that can be done, from preservation to restoration. And then Joe Thompson will do the building materials, Gary Bly, building features and systems, Pat Carlisle, interior spaces, features and finishes, and Lacey Bassett, building site and setting. Is everyone okay with those? Yes, Joe.
Point of order. Some time ago, we decided we were only doing exteriors.
I mean, that's not part of the standards.
It's City of Shelby. Shelby Historic Preservation Commission is only exterior. I think that's in our minutes.
I recall that, Joe. I do recall that. And I don't have any problem with talking about interior spaces, but we've always kind of thought that certificates of appropriateness were for exterior things.
Is that something that we need to revisit for discussion, because it is in the interior standards?
If we have 5 to 10 minute presentations, we've got to make things brief.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the brevity of information. I think that if we do this as a Zoom, what we may have to do is record the questions and then individually call people and work on the individual questions so as to save time in a Zoom meeting. But I do want to know, I personally would like to know what the other persons have in their outline as to what you're going to say before, so that we all have an understanding about what each of us is planning to say or to mention, so that we can look at continuity as we go, as we make the presentation.
Well, I have several questions on that. Do we want to put together a PowerPoint that each one of us talks from? Do we want to go through this ahead of time? Do we want to do a trial run with just us? Can we do that with having all 5 of us together? There's a lot of questions that we still need to answer on this.
How long is our total Zoom meeting with stakeholders?
I think, did you say an hour?
Well, we talked about 45 minutes to an hour at one point.
Mhm. I mean, I think that's a good length. I wouldn't go longer than that.
I think you're right. We can't
Yeah.
hold interest.
Right.
So if there's 5 of us presenting 5 sections at 5 minutes, there's 25 minutes.
Mhm.
We still need a Q&A, although Pat suggested we do that offline. I don't know. That to some extent defeats the Zoom meeting.
There is a chat area in Zoom where people, and I see one message here. Where did that come from? Oh, Lacey. Okay. Yeah. So if you look down at the bottom of the screen, it'll say chat area, and you can call that up, and so people could, because well, that's the other question. Can we do this with just property owners, or do we have to open this up to live stream with the public?
The only thing is, if when you, with the way you Zoom, and I'm sure you've heard the news, it's not a good idea to put your meeting link out in the public, or you're gonna get pornography and everything else. People are hacking in. So I don't know how you're gonna do it with the public on Zoom and have them interact. I mean, it's one thing if you just live stream the meeting out, but to have the interaction would be very difficult.
Okay. Can we have a meeting with just property owners, or is it going to have to be open for anybody to view?
Any meeting you guys have has got to be open to the public.
Yeah, and with 5 of us
Yep.
discussing this, it would have to be open, right? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Well, we can do the same thing that we do for these meetings, that anybody that wants to provide public input ahead of time can do that.
How many people are we going to have? Is the mayor going to want to introduce things? Make a statement?
Okay.
Okay, and there's 5 of us, there's 6. Without consulting
And Joe.
Joe, I have designated him as to running the meeting, because he's got a little more familiarity with running Zoom.
Who did you say,
Then,
Joe?
yes?
Yeah.
Originally, this was small group meeting with select people over breakfast. And I thought of 5 or 6 of us, and 5 or 6, we've got 12 now around the breakfast table, which is off, but I don't think we can address questions from 18 property owners plus us.
Mhm.
It gets unwieldy. So originally this was perhaps a series of breakfast meetings with a rotating group of stakeholders.
Right.
And we haven't resolved which direction that went since we closed the door. So that has to be determined. And if we're going to have a small group of stakeholders, those have to be handpicked, which I think is your prerogative, Chris, to see who the first 5 and the second 5 are, or what have you. So that all has to be nailed down.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would definitely like to have input as far as who we think the first one should be. Joe, I know, I don't know what the, Joe Geis, I don't know what the, what level of Zoom the city has, but I know that there's 2 different things. You can have participants and you can have, the public viewing it too. And I mean, can we give permission for some of the property owners to actually be participants in this? And so they would be able to talk or chat or whatever we need to do, but the rest of it would be, open to everybody, but they can't say anything.
He's
Whoever you
muted.
give the link to, you'd be able to talk, interact, but I'm just saying, I don't think we want to put this link out in the newspaper.
Right,
Right.
That is the issue.
right.
So I know that you can do breakout groups in these, right? But I don't know how that would work with the live streaming. So that is, you can, if you select people's emails, and I'm actually going to be on one today later that they do this. So I'll try to watch and see and ask questions about how it's done, but you can break out into smaller groups. I don't know if that would be helpful, but again, I don't know how that's going to record. So
Yeah.
If we answer off the Zoom meetings individually, we'll have the same question asked by half the participants repeatedly. Whereas if we answer it in the meeting, everybody will see the answer, and that'll cut that way down, I would think.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, we could put the whole thing on the city's website afterwards. That doesn't meet public meeting rules, but it would.
Yeah, but we have to have it live. It has to be, public has to be able to see as it's going on. You can't put it on after the fact.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not talking about meeting the legal needs. I'm just talking about the desirability of having it recorded and available later.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it would be anyway. All of the
Yeah.
meetings are, yeah, even though they're live streamed, they're recorded too. Joe's recording them.
Electronically, yeah.
Well, so I guess there's a couple of ways we could go. We could either make this just an informational type meeting for anybody and everybody, and and invite the property owners to tune in, although they would be part of the public.
How many property owners are we talking about?
Well, I mean, if we
30-ish.
if we made it public, anybody could look at it, property owners or not. Or we could keep it small, or we could wait until there's a time when we could meet face to face.
How much longer do you suppose it will be till we can meet face to face?
You're not young, Pat, and neither am I.
Yeah, me neither.
This has got
You
a
don't-
long tail.
You don't order green
I know.
bananas, do you,
I'm
Joe?
aware of that. I'm aware of it. I don't know. I don't have a problem with property owners being given an opportunity to send in questions. Let them see what the agenda is for the meeting. And then if there are items on that agenda that they have questions about, to send in to us a question or whatever that we could answer then at the meeting, saying from property owner that we got a question such and such, and answer it at the meeting. The more we have constant interaction, the longer the meeting will go.
That's true.
I may say now, our Utilities and Streets Committee met yesterday in person in the back conference room. So maybe kind of the question is when we can begin to meet in these type settings. I think that may be feasible in June. So maybe back to Joe's point, if these were originally planned to be a series of smaller, more intimate type, continental type breakfast, coffee and a donut or whatever, that maybe that would be the way to go. And then you can, Christine, you can draw up a list however you want, and however that spacing is, if we hold it in the back conference room at City Hall, I think you could have your distances in place. We could have to check it out, but I think you'd have distances in place and have probably 5 property owners with maybe a couple commission members. If that sounds even doable. I think we got enough space back there to distance out.
Well, I think that simplifies things a lot. It's reversing direction again, but that doesn't really bother me.
Mhm.
Well,
And
we can meet, I mean, isn't there a max of 10 right now? I mean, we could meet in groups of up to 10 anyway, right now?
that's what I understand still.
With social distancing and all that, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm, mhm.
Do we have to be all 5 presenters, all 5 sections at the same meeting?
No, I mean, we could, again, make it a series, but then are you going to invite different property owners to each meeting? I mean,
Well, let's say I think something for you to nail down is, do we do one big group or do we do a series? And if we're meeting face to face, it's a small group.
And excuse me, but you know, in June, maybe that number is going to change, Christina.
good.
And I'd be willing to host it. I mean, we could host it in our church annex. We've got a little gymatorium. If you want to have a little bit of a larger venue, there'd be no charge for that or anything. And we have plenty of room. It's a 30 by 50 area. And we have round tables. We could have everyone at once if you so desired, if that limit is increased. I've heard one state, I think it's up to 50 now, I think, in one state. So
Yeah, and maybe
I-
someplace like the senior center, because there could be a lot of distancing in the senior center.
mhm, Yeah.
Yeah, it's about the same size as what you've got. Yeah.
Right. yeah, in any event, yeah,
They're
right.
relatively the same size. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. I don't have a problem with doing smaller meetings and then just simply repeat the agenda at each meeting with a different set of stakeholders, so that the end result is no matter which meeting a stakeholder comes to, they get the same presentation. And we would make it available to all stakeholders, but let them know the first 5 or the first 7 who respond that they will attend will be at meeting 1. And then they're off the slate. Then it's open to the rest of them, meeting 2, who wants to come to the second meeting. Same agenda, second meeting, another 5 to 7 stakeholders. Third meeting, same agenda, another 5 or 7 stakeholders. It's more intimate. They can ask questions. We can respond to their question face to face. I'm brainstorming. Now shut up.
So we spacing those
Actually-
out 2 weeks apart.
Closer than that if you want.
So I'm getting the sense that you want a more intimate setting. You want the property owners to get to know us and for us to get to know the property owners, rather than just blasting, a 5-member series on this. Okay.
And we still could do it as a PowerPoint, setting,
Right.
but we're just repeating it. That's all.
Right.
But I have that flexibility. Some of you do not have the same flexibility.
There's a question there, what we can do, but also what these stakeholders are capable of doing.
Or want to do.
That speaks to the length of the meeting and what we're covering and how we attract these people.
Mhm.
Are we going to limit ourselves merely to the discussion of the standards? I think one of the things that's going to attract the property owners is a promise of tax relief, and we haven't scoped that out. Is it $100 or is it $10,000? Why do I want to participate? And are the standards reasonable then with what I might receive in tax aid?
Good
Right.
point. Very good point.
Yeah, that is a good point. Mirshay?
Jessica is actually involved in another Zoom meeting. She said, don't write her off, she'll be back. But to Joe's point, Jessica might be the one that really should present that end of it, the tax relief.
I was going to say, I don't know that any of us are qualified, but I think Jessica has been looking into that. So
Yeah, I think she could study up on it and present the bold bullet points.
And that's a very good point, Joe. I mean, I do think that probably does need to be included in the conversation. Otherwise, people are saying, well, you tell me that I have to do all this stuff and I'm bound to do all this, but how am I going to do it?
Mhm.
Yeah, funding's got to be a piece of the total picture. It has to be funding, and how much is private, how much is public, how much is tax relief, all the different grant opportunities. Now we're talking a whole lot more than an hour.
we have not nailed down a dollar amount. And I propose making $50,000 of improvement to my building. And how much can I expect? If I can't expect a reasonable amount, I'm not interested in your meeting.
Well, if the expectation is you have to complete the requirements for tax relief. So what we really are looking at is what is the process that a stakeholder goes through in order to receive tax relief. The actual receiving of it is not our decision.
No, but it's the property owner's decision.
No, it's the decision of the tax, the IRS, and those people as to how much relief they're going to get. There are guidelines for the relief, and not just the standards don't even touch on it. The tax relief guidelines, the process to go through to get tax reduction because you've done a historic property renovation is out of our hands. It's another system entirely, but we should be able to direct them to it and be able to speak to how it works. But none of those decisions are ours.
Yeah, and I just want to say that from what I know of it, it is a little bit complicated, unfortunately. But so we can probably do an overview, but I don't know that we're necessarily going to be able to expect to get into much of the detail on that. Just FYI.
And to Joe's point, maybe an example of some other municipality similar to ours, where someone has, just almost like Joe's saying, I'm going to put $10,000 into my facade, and over in such and such a city, when an owner did that, then the benefit he received was this. If we have some example, not saying it's guaranteed, but saying this is maybe a picture of what this looks like, right, Joe?
Yes, and now you can start bringing in the standards and the hoops you have to jump through. You're wasting your time if I can't justify the project roughly to start.
Yeah, I think you could bring an example to the table and show them this is kind of what this looks like. But again, not guaranteeing any particular dollar amount, but saying this is what it looked like in another city.
I have not seen that. I've not seen a hint of it yet.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of examples in neighboring cities. There are several examples in neighboring cities of persons who have received the tax relief or tax reductions as a result of historic preservation. There are lots of examples of that in several cities.
And I think that's in Jessica's purview. I mean, this is economic development, and I'm not trying to. I just think she's studied it to a point. I think she could fine tune it to at least get it to where we could present something like Joe's saying, to provide some sort of incentive to bring stakeholders to the table.
Yes, very good statement. We're well wrapped up.
Okay.
Okay.
How do we want to proceed? Do we still want to keep the timetable of June?
Well, the things we have to do. We have to decide the people, how long the sessions are, and how much to each presenter, and how many people.
Okay.
So we need to enlist Joe and to run the meeting. If we're going to bring photos, PowerPoint, we're consuming time and we're keeping Joe awful busy with shuffling. I hope he's capable, but I'm certainly not.
That's the younger Joe, the younger version.
Much younger.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if we're going to do this face to face, do we still want to record it? Or still record it live, or whatever we're going to do?
That's an easy step to do, I would think. We just decide yes or no, and somebody does it.
What are the restrictions, though, if we are limited to a certain number of people? I mean, that essentially rules out the public's ability to view it. So wouldn't we need to record it?
We have to record it. We have no option. It has to have a public view.
It doesn't have to be video recorded, but it has to be recorded. Yeah. Well, okay, and then we're getting into the same situation.
And we're
Even
getting into inviting in.
even if we're going to meet personally with these, if all 5 of us meet, then we have to open it to the public too. So we need to figure out, you know, what our angle is. If we're only going to invite a few property owners and to get to know them, then we can't have more than 2 giving the presentation, right?
We could perhaps arrange it in a large room with 5 select stakeholders and the commission and announce that there's a meeting with these people and understand that the meeting's public, but it's a specific meeting with these people, and whoever wants to come in and sit in the back is welcome because it's a public meeting.
But not, okay.
Announce it ahead of time as a meeting with these people.
Well, then if we open it to the public, then how do we control how many come in? Then we're having, you know, if we're still limited to only 10 people at the time, then I don't know that we can turn people away. So
Let
then,
them sit in the back row and we sit around the table.
No, it's the number. I think, Joseph, we could probably do it like we do in our council meetings now. There's no public attendance in person, but it is live streamed. That is your public access. I would imagine we could still do it. Joe, correct me, Joe, if I'm wrong.
Yeah, as long as I got an internet connection, we can do that. However, I'm just thinking, I mean, does everyone have, it's mid-May, does everyone have their presentations ready to go? You talked about June. By July, we may have a whole total different set of rules out, and you might be able to do a better meeting in public, in person, and not have to worry about all this stuff. And it might be better for the building owners, because are they going to log on to something and listen to it? Or if they can't interact, it's much better to be in person, I think. But it's my 2 cents.
mhm. Well, and I think you're right. I think maybe we take this next month and we come back in June and kind of run through what we intend to talk about and see where we are on that, and then prepare for July. If we shifted a month, do you think that would work?
Well, it gives everybody more time to prepare.
Right.
And I'm concerned, Chris, that you have, and I'm going to pick on you, you have some pictures of 6 different, and then you have a PowerPoint, and then you have your reading your presentation. Now you're out at 22 minutes, you alone, and we're trying to do the whole thing in 45. That time constraint is going to be critical if we're going to keep the interest of the people attending.
Right.
And we talked about whether we have a morning meeting and or an evening meeting or several. And those all have to be within an hour, or we're going to lose the audience.
Right. Right. And I did, you know, when I looked at these different categories, I only picked a couple of things. You're welcome to put more information in, but I thought that those were the things that people are going to want to know about within each category. They're going to want to know, you know, can they paint their brick? That can, you know, just basic things like that. And so that's why I picked some of those. But, you know, if you think there's other things that people are going to be wanting to know about, then, you know, we need. So that's why I probably think we're right. I think we probably need to put together a draft of what we would talk about and maybe share it with each other and come back.
That sounds good.
Okay.
And then we haven't talked about follow-up meeting. If that's indicated, we can do that.
Right.
And that can be Zoom or that can be in person, depending on the climate.
And I don't mind, you know, creating the PowerPoint. Everybody can give me their input and then I'll just put it on slides. It's pretty easy to do, but I do think PowerPoint keeps everybody on track, and it helps to show the basic ideas of what we're trying to get across. We can always embed pictures in with the PowerPoint too. So,
but I say within the constraints of how much time is allotted to you for your part of the presentation.
right.
I'm in favor of a PowerPoint. That's Chris's part, as well as all of the others of us. All of us are part on a PowerPoint, because if it needs to be used repeatedly, then there is the consistency from one time to the next of the exact same information. If you start going off the cuff, we're getting a lot of trouble with that. So PowerPoint keeps us focused, keeps every single meeting, if we do it once, or if we do it 10 times, it'll be the same meeting, the same basic construction.
Mhm.
Good point.
Yeah, plus that provides a resource that if we wanted to, if we felt comfortable with it, we could share.
True. Yeah, I mean, that could be put on the city website at some point too. Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like what we want to do is work through this month and come back in June with a draft. If you'd like, I can set up a Google Doc for us to work from. It seems like that's easily accessible to everybody.
Have you nailed down the responsibilities, the 5 areas for 5 of us?
Yeah,
Are you happy with that?
right. You'll be doing the building materials, so like the brick.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody knows what they're working on. So
I
let's,
have no problem doing interior things because I'm sure at some point somebody's going to want to know, well, how do I save this staircase, or how do I save this or that, or this unique window that has an interior element to it, or whatever. I don't have any problem with doing interior spaces. Joe's point earlier on that we had talked about our commission trying to stick to exterior things until we really got our legs under us before we went to interior. I remember that conversation, but I don't have a problem with saying, you know, there's a couple of things that are going to come up that kind of go from exterior to interior, like foyers and entryways and lobby areas and so on. And that kind of, I don't have,
yeah, I think if, you know, if we, I mean, the ordinance says, you know, that we're abiding by the Secretary of Interior standards. I mean, it doesn't break down exterior, interior,
it does not.
the site or anything. So, I mean, I think that and the same thing goes for the, you know, the building site and setting. We know that, you know, some things that are coming up with the, you know, Marvin Memorial Library and what they want to do to the exterior. That's, you know, that's not exactly the building, but it's, you know, part of the site.
Yeah, the signage and drainage and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, those questions are going to come up and they are part of the standards. So we need to be aware of them, and we need to understand that, you know, we probably are going to have to deal with those types of questions. Okay, are we all on the same page then? We're going to come back with the draft in June, and we'll you know, plan for the bulk of the time again to be used to fine tune the talk that we're going to do. And then we'll look, do we want to look at a date now that we want to do this in July, or do we want to, or is that premature? We want to wait until we find out what's going on?
I gotta wait until I hear what's going on. I'm sorry. I really think that we're going to be in a much better place in July than we are in June, but we still have to take directions from entities above and beyond us as to what happens. So, yeah.
I'll
Our own health department. I would like our own health department to dial in on this.
Yeah.
What do they think? How do they interpret the guidelines for us to have this type of a meeting in July? Our own health department could be able to advise us on that, I would think.
Yeah. Well, and in the meantime too, we need to think about who we would invite. And I do need some guidance on that too. I have some ideas about who, but I think we should talk to Jessica and Pat. I know you know quite a few.
We got the list. Yeah.
So if we can work on that too, we'll have kind of a tentative list for June of who we would invite.
Okay.
And then also, I think even if we don't pick a date, I think we need to definitely figure out, you know, possibilities of where we might have it and how we would, you know, deal with. I don't think that 6 foot distance is going to go away anytime soon.
No,
So
no.
depending, you know, I'm sure it doesn't matter how many people are in the room, they're still going to have to be 6 feet apart. So we need to figure out a place that's going to have
Space the chairs. Space the
Yeah.
chairs.
because you know, honestly, you know, we're all of the age and all have had some, you know, medical, you know, issues over the years that, you know, qualify us for high risk too. So I worry about us too and trying to do
Yes,
this, but I
yeah.
do think it's important to do so.
Thank you for mentioning that. Thank
Yeah.
you for mentioning that, Chris, because I have serious health issues and I just can't get the virus. And I promised my husband I would not get it. So I
Yeah.
can't do that.
Yeah, some people still don't get it that, you know, that they should wear masks when they're out, and things like that.
That's for them to decide for themselves, but I can keep 6 feet away from them anywhere I am.
I tried, doesn't always work.
Chris, you have two things in front of you. One is our personal presentations,
Right?
and the second is how and where we do them. And they're two separate issues, but certainly the presentations we can address here in short notice.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Anything else? We know what we're doing now. We're going to work on a draft for the next meeting, and we're going to work on potential names for the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. All right. Let's see. So we'll keep going down through the committee reports, funding and grants. The Rich History Alliance grant update. Next grant cycle is July 1st. Gary Bly has been trying to reach a couple of different groups that could teach us how to repoint brick. He's not getting any response from either one. I kind of put it on his back to see if maybe he could get any farther than I did, but he hasn't either. So I'm not sure what we're going to do about it. I don't know if we need to look outside the area for somebody. I mean, the two companies that we were looking at were in Mansfield and one here in Shelby. And, or maybe we need to think about something else that we would use grant money.
Maybe a different topic as opposed to repointing brick. I think it's a perfect topic, but if it's difficult to find somebody to show us how to do it, maybe we need a different topic. I don't know what the other one would be. Sorry, but let's see.
Lacey, maybe we should check with the Richland Preservation Group and see if they know of someone else that.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna suggest. I think there's probably somebody. They might not be right in, you know, the area, but I can check into it.
What does Julia Roll have to offer?
Yeah,
That's who I would ask.
yeah.
And or I can check with Tracy and Alan too. If you haven't talked to them about it, Christina.
No.
No, not. I mean, not at any length. Alan actually. I mean, Alan runs that Rich History Alliance, who we would get the grant from. So he does know what we're trying to do. But I mean, it would have been, you know, a great thing, and still would be a great thing to do, because not only are we learning how to repoint brick, but we're also helping to preserve the engine house, which is the, you know, building that we were going to use for the project. So I think it would be good to keep going in that direction. We just need to find somebody that's willing to do it. So, okay. Let's see. The historic marker, we're still waiting on it. I haven't heard anything. Joe, you haven't heard anything in the last day or so? No. So we're still waiting on that. If we can maintain the 10 person or less, we could probably do a small dedication. We'll just all form a big 6 foot distance ring around it and dedicate it when we finally get it. Let's see, the inventory, the online mapping system update. I've been back and forth with Adam all week. For some reason, I'm not able to log on. I set up an account and everything, and he told me yesterday I should be able to get on. I tried again last night, still can't get on. And there was another piece of paperwork that I needed to fill out and send in to him. And it was the same thing that I marked yes to online. So I'm not sure why there's a paper copy that has to be done. But anyway, when I get that sorted out, or maybe even before, Joe Geis, I'm going to send the information to you, and I'm going to send it to Gary Bly so that you can both get logged on too. I mean, maybe you'll have better luck than I do. Maybe I'm just not doing something right.
I do have a copy of the paperwork that was mailed in January. I kept a copy for the archives. We can copy it again if you need a copy of that, what was mailed in officially.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, he said that,
It's
Shelby,
pretty-
we're in the system, but for some reason I'm not able to log in, so I'll send it.
I don't think it's the hard copy that's needed. I think the fact is there's a glitch somewhere in the system getting you guys on.
Yeah,
I think it's at their end. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that, but I think that's where it's at.
yeah, I'll continue working on it.
Let me know if you need those hard copies, easy enough to do.
Okay, let's see. Publicity, I have sent an email, and I'm going to do a follow-up phone call. I was hoping that Mindy would give me a call on writing some articles for Historic Preservation Month. I have a feeling I'm just going to have to go ahead and write it. I mean, that's kind of what we talked about to begin with, but I thought they've got a pretty decent reporter there now, and I was hoping that he would pick up the ball, but so I will get back with Mindy on that one. The designation, bandstand, local historic landmark and national register discussion for the bandstand. I know we sent a few, I sent a few newspaper clippings. I don't know if we've got any further than that.
I haven't seen anything else. I'm sorry. I haven't looked at anything else except those two clippings. And of course, there were Joe sent us some stuff that were items in the newspaper in the 70s.
That's right.
I think we should do it the same way we would expect most things to be done. We need to do it locally designated, then make sure it's on the Ohio inventory, and then go to the National Register. Just take it right up the ladder.
Yeah.
And we can do the local ASAP. I think we've got enough information to do the local one now. So, and we don't, because it is, as I understand it, owned by the city of Shelby, we don't have an owner issue. We don't need an owner to initiate this. We can do it as a commission, take it to council, get it locally designated ASAP.
Is it owned by the city or the school district?
It sits on school property, and it was built by I'm not sure what word to use here. It wasn't built by the alumni, the high school alumni. It was built as a dedication or as a place for concerts to happen because the Shelby bands were having concerts in the park, and they were wanting something that they thought would be a safer venue because people were standing in the street listening to the band play. I think it's interesting the size of it now. There's no way you'd put today's high school band in that band, but that was the size of the band in 1910. So I think that making it a local thing, I don't really have anything that says who owns it. We know why it was built. We know why it was that location.
It's owned by the city.
Yeah, I would think it's owned by the city.
I got a whole agreement here where I'll scan it and email it to everyone, but there was a whole agreement between the city and the school board way back when to have a park and do that. So
Okay.
I'll find that and send it to you, but it is owned by the city.
We built with taxpayer money.
Yep.
Well, that's good to know because I was talking to Scott Harvey about reserving it for an event for the suffrage centennial. But so now I need to actually go through the city, I guess. But and I'm not even. It was supposed to be the end of June, so I don't know that that's going to happen. We'll see. But hello, Jessica. Jessica Gribben just joined us.
Oh,
Hi, everyone. It's nice
Jessica.
to see you.
Good.
Cat standing on her head, I see.
Yes, I am standing on my head. I'm rushing all of the blood to my head.
You must use a lot of hair gel.
But honey, if you know how to flip it, tell me how to flip it. I don't know how to turn me over.
I'm not sure.
It's in your camera settings, but this is more fun.
So Jessica, we're on number 6. We've been zooming through all this. Literally, we've been zooming through all this. We're talking about the bandstand. I think I probably would have prepared the paperwork today for local designation, but I was still trying to get in the mapping system to see if part of it was part of Central Park, because there is a listing of the 55 properties. Central Park is one of them.
Mhm.
I think they call it Memorial Park, actually.
When I was able to get in before, when I was one of the persons who was designated to get in, I did look at it then, and I thought the bandstand was mentioned in the designation of the Central Park. They called it Central Park. And the bandstand was mentioned in that sheet. But I unfortunately never really copied it off of the internet because I thought we'd always have access to it. I didn't realize we would not have access.
Mhm.
But there is, yeah, when you do Shelby Center Historic District, the map comes up and there's little dots on everything that's on the map. You hit the dot and it shows you the page that actually has all the details of why that is part of the Shelby Center District, Historic District. And there it is. And it was easy to read. And I thought, there it is. There's the bandstand. Yay. And I just didn't know we would have other issues.
Well, that would be great if it is, because then all we have to do is go after the National Register. And
Right. Yeah.
and at that
Yeah.
point, we're just, I think we're talking about attaching it to the Central District, right?
Yeah. Well, see,
Not-
if
Not a
if
separate.
indeed it is what I think it is, already in the Ohio inventory,
Mhm.
it might be that it was supposed to be part of the National District when it was done, but was just a slight oversight. It was supposed to be there anyway. So,
It could be. I know that because I went back and looked at the national paperwork, and it started at the fire station.
yeah, I don't have anything in my archives on national paperwork. It starts at the fire department. There's no mention of the Memorial Park or Central Park in the national paperwork that I have in my archives, but that doesn't mean my paperwork's complete. It just means that that's the set that I inherited.
Okay. All right. So we'll continue to kind of research that, and hopefully by the next meeting, I better have access. We better have access to the inventory so that we know what's on there.
There's always a nice drive to Columbus and a face-to-face with one person that says, get me online.
Well, they're not in the office, though.
I know they're not doing anything. They're doing everything the same way. I think that's where the glitch is.
Mhm. Okay. Number 7, the 1872 Historic Engine House update. Mayor Shag, do you have an update on anything? Oh, you're muted.
Unmute. Unmute.
Sorry about that.
That's
I do that all the time. Probably the most recent update is that our ambulance service, they're going to be under the ownership of another larger company, a mother company. So you may have seen some of that in the paper. So they're in that process now, and when that's completed, then they're going to have a little more detailed talks about what the future looks like for them. Whether they're interested in continuing to lease that building or perhaps buy. So that's about the only update I have at this point.
Hmm.
I think that'll be completed around July-ish, somewhere around July. So we may have more. Well, we should have a lot more to talk about in July then.
Okay. I did submit the paperwork on, for an endangered site. I thought they were going to announce it this week. I haven't seen anything yet. So, and they said they were going to announce it in a very unique way, and I don't have a clue what that means. So
Oh,
we'll stay tuned on that one.
okay.
I kind of thought for next steps and now I'm not sure how to proceed on that. If they're thinking about actually buying the building, I don't know what we would do. But we had talked about prioritizing the work that needed to be done, and and I really think that we need to come up with a draft of a plan anyway for future use. So I kind of wanted to talk about future use discussion because the plans that we would, present, as a proposed plan for restoring the engine house, would kind of depend on what we think the future use is going to be. So I kind of want to get some input from you on that.
And Joe would be the best to, of course. What is there now? I think we've all understood it's grandfathered in as the use that's in now,
Right.
as I understand it. So any future use, yeah, that's going to be a pretty in-depth conversation.
Right. Yeah. And I've already talked to Joe Geis about helping me, to come up with a plan. There's FEMA that you have to think about, mitigation, what might need to be done depending on what's, what the future use would be for the building. So what are your thoughts?
Well, the sale of the building, if indeed it becomes a situation for sale, and Joe knows all of the ins and outs on this, how the city has to say that we don't need it anymore, and then they put it on the market through usually the CIC. And then there are some conditions, and I have in our archives a document about, there are documents about FEMA and that building, and there's also a document in there about historic preservation as part of the deeding, and sort of a layer on the deed that historic preservation has to take place. But those are all discussions that have to occur between the city, who is the owner, and the potential buyer. The Historic Preservation Commission, as a piece of the city, can have input, but we have no decision-making process there.
Right.
We have no authority there. But
Right.
we know certainly that Mayor Shag and Joe Geis, and nobody's wanting to sell this for demolition. Nobody's wanting to sell it for a used parking lot or whatever, used car lot. There's just certain things that, and if you look at the building itself, it has lots of limitations in terms of what its future use could be. So, I'm not real worried about the sale of it until we get closer to the time where the city says we're selling it. Then I'm concerned about who buys and what they're going to do with it. But I think we can always have a certain hook there as the Historic Preservation Commission, that what happens, not the use, but what happens to the maintenance and care of the building can come under our guidelines. I really think it can. And I think whoever buys it should know that we exist and we intend to watch what they do with it.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the city gave us purview here, so I'm thinking we have a stake in the situation. We have words to be said and conversations to be had with a potential buyer or any change in the use of the building.
Well, and that's why I'm thinking that we need to come up with a proposal, for an alternative for whether they're going to sell it or not. I think we need to come up with a plan.
Well, a suggestion to the city if
Right.
they maintain ownership as to how to use it.
Right.
Oh, okay, I'm with you now.
Right.
With you now. Sorry, I didn't understand your comment. My apologies.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
So maybe we can get together, Christina, on our own too, and you, Joe, and I can get together and talk about that.
Sure, that's fine. I know there have been other things that have been thrown around, in the last couple of years, really,
Mhm.
for uses. So, maybe we can, like I said, some of it would, like if you use downstairs area clearly for a meeting space and you don't have a lot of, and maybe you have tables and chairs in there, then maybe your mitigation against floods is going to be different than if you actually put things down there that are going to, cost money and
Mhm.
that you can't easily remove if, you know, if there's imminent flooding. Okay, I wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to give input on it, and then we'll work on a plan. Any other comments? Okay. And then the last thing I have under unfinished business was Engine House History digitization project. We had talked at the last meeting about the books and the photos and things that the fire station has on the history. And you saw that I wrote an email to Chief Thompson, and he called me back, and he was very supportive of us digitizing it. He did say, however, that no one's allowed in the firehouse right now, you know, for obvious reasons. I'm worried about, you know, us being contaminated, them being, you know, them at risk too. So he asked if we kind of revisit it in a month. So we'll, you know, as everything that we're doing probably right now, we'll look at it again in June and then see where we are. But I just wanted to let you know, he was very supportive of it and thought it was a great idea that we have that history too, so that, you know, when we're looking, if, you know, when we're looking at grants or we're looking at other things, we'll be able to use that information.
How do you see that unfolding?
You know,
In a
probably,
month?
I'm sorry?
In a month?
In a month? Probably what we'll need to do, I don't know that they're going to let us take any of that home to digitize it. So probably I've got a scanner, and probably what we'll do is we'll go in and we'll scan page by page, and I'll bring my laptop and we'll just do it that way. So we can look through things and digitize as we go. So, you know, it might be, and Gary said that he would help too. So it might be you and I go in one time, Gary maybe goes in another time or something like that. I don't think if we're working as a committee, I don't know that we need to, do we still need to maintain the only two people at it, only two commissioners at a time? I don't think so. I think we,
You really shouldn't meet any more than 2 people.
oh, okay. All right.
And when you're working with records like that, 2 people is probably the best way. Some of the records you're going to see, you're probably going to want to take a photo out of a frame in order to digitize it.
Right.
And those photos they're fragile. I will tell you, I've seen most of it. Some of it's very fragile to handle. I would say you can handle with gloves very
Right.
carefully and so on. So 2 people is probably plenty for the project on a given day.
How
Yeah.
much is down there, Joe?
It's, you know, an inch thick book or whatever. That's just got, plus they actually have
It's not file drawers full of stuff.
no, it's not that big of a deal, but yeah, they actually have the minutes of when the fire department started and so forth, which is really neat.
Yeah, he said they had the ledger too,
Mhm.
like, I guess what they paid originally for it and all the materials and everything. So that would be cool to see. Okay. So, so that'll be in June. Are you just now putting a message there, Jessica?
It's nice to see you all. Hope it's in person next time.
Yep, gotta go. Sorry, don't want to interrupt your meeting, but it was
Okay.
nice meeting you all. I'll stay in the loop, and if there's anything for me or questions you have, let me know.
Okay. Thank you. I think we're almost done anyway. So thanks.
right.
Okay.
But we have
I don't
questions
have any.
later.
I don't have anything for new business. Does anyone have anything else they want to talk about?
Can I mention that when we start to do the local designation for the bandstand, I expect there to be questions about some local designations that were asked about some time ago but never were followed up on. One is Clark Avenue, which is the last of the brick streets that is still exposed as brick. They're all brick, but that one's still, the brick is exposed. The Whiteway lights, remember that we talked about Whiteway lights down at the Boulevard one time. We've talked about the gates, the concrete gate and entranceway to Salsa Park as being locally designated. There's a bridge in the park that was built as part of right after the war, I forgot the name of but there was, it was to put people back to work. It was a major federal construction thing, and that bridge is one of them. When those things had been brought up a long time ago. So when we do the local designation for the bandstand, I expect to hear questions about, are you going to do this one? Are you going to do that one? We could do the Clark Avenue bridge of Brick Street relatively easily. That's John Ensman has all that stuff. He already sent me all the stuff on the Whiteway lights when they were put in and so on. I have a file on the Whiteway lights. I don't have anything on the entrance to Salsa Park. I've never dug that one out. But I would expect once we do one local designation, there's going to be some requests for others that have been kind of back here on the back burner.
Well, and I understand that, but somebody needs to give us paperwork so we can act on it. I mean, that's why I took it off the agenda, because we
I
can talk
understand
about it, but
I understand it. We do have paperwork on the Whiteway lights. Shall I request some paperwork? Shall I ask the persons who would have the paperwork on those other things to send me some stuff? Okay.
yeah, I think we need that. I think, we need to have paperwork to act on, or one of us needs to fill out the paperwork so that we
Well,
can.
that's what it is. One of us has to fill out the paperwork and have the backup documentation for the reason to make it a local designation. And I'm just saying that if I have the documentation, the paperwork is a one-pager. That's not a problem.
Mhm. Okay, is there anything else?
Do you have a date for the June meeting?
Yes, it's June 19th at 9 a.m. And I guess we will discuss shortly before then whether we can meet in person or whether we want to continue Zoom meetings. So I just left it to be determined at this point.
All right, I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you. We need a second.
I'll second.
Okay. I think you both said it at the same time.
Well, we don't really need anything to adjourn. It's up to you.
No, we don't.
So I'm just going to cross that off. Go for it, Chair.
All right. If there's no further business, the meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.
Have a nice weekend. Watch for the flyover today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.